You know the Earth was created in 6 days about 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, right? I thought the Earth was created 4.5 billion years ago and was completed in like 15 million years. Nope, but some Christians think the 6 days are metaphors for each day representing an extended period of time like a million or a billion years. Okay, but like, just say that. That just sounds like a coping mechanism to add science. And what about the Big Bang, and how do you fit the evolutionary timeline in 6,000 years? Also, all the catastrophic events in human civilizations. You really think there was a singularity the size of a pinpoint that exploded into infinity, which expanded matter and gases to form galaxies and stars, and then heavier elements made planets, which spawned a soup cocktail of life, which evolves through natural selection and adaptations, and humans are just some apes that come from a common ancestor, and we become so conscious that we're aware of death, and we form spiritualities, philosophies, and religions so we can just sleep at night? That seems more feasible than poof, here's fucking everything and be a good boy or your soul will burn in the pits of hell forever. Wow, dude, I really hope you find Jesus. You know Adam was the first human created by God in the Garden of Eden, and Eve was the first woman created from his rib, right? I thought the first early humans evolved in Africa around 6 to 2 million years ago, and Homo sapiens appeared 300,000 years ago, and the real Garden of Eden seems more likely to be in Botswana, Africa, rather than the Fertile Crescent. That's mumbo jumbo. God created the tree of knowledge of good and evil and forbade Adam and Eve to eat fruit from it, but Satan tempted them to in the form of a talking snake. A talking snake? What if these are just abstractions and metaphors conveying the realization of being naked and understanding our vulnerability? Naked is being aware of our mortality, and this self-consciousness takes one away from stillness. Knowing about good and evil brings one the capacity to commit suffering. But most of all, we become aware of death, and the only antidote is to accept it. Why are you taking this so literally? You really think wearing clothes is connected to the psychological trauma of humanity's awakening of being self-conscious of their own demise? Maybe we're just cold as shit and the dude with the little dick made it a fad to cover up and all the ugly people with abnormalities chose clothes? I don't fucking know, dude. You know God banished Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden for eating fruit from the tree of knowledge, and this is the reason women have to obey men and suffer through pregnancy. And men were punished to till the land for food until they decayed, right? Wow, what a sweet God. And then Adam and Eve got to fucking and gave birth to Cain and Abel, right? Cain was a tiller of the ground and Abel was the keeper of the sheep. Abel gave his first fruits, and Cain offered some of his grain to God. God was unimpressed with Cain's offerings, but loved Abel's for some reason. Giving from the heart is the melody of worship that God or existence reacts to. The Creator does not praise selfishness. But why would God want anything at all if he has everything already? Cain murders Abel because he's jealous. The resentment boiled in him and he destroyed his own ideal of a person. God's punishment was the shame he had to live with for what he did. Okay, what if hatred stems from Cain and it lingers in our collective unconsciousness and is passed down through habits, actions, and environments? Yeah, Cain is committing revenge on existence for the suffering it causes. He is resentful towards the suffering that life presents. Cain refused to take responsibility for his being's suffering. So why be compassionate, just, or fair to life if your ride has been so treacherous? One works to make sacrifices to obtain fortune. So pull yourself up and change and stop playing victim. Cain wanted to be innocent and felt bad because of his own misery. These people who hate their reality and suffer conclude they might as well try to bring the ones who are praised and loved to hell with them. But there's also the flip side. There's love and beauty, right? When one feels this serenity or this stillness, they want to bring more of it into existence for the rest of the beings in this universe. So there's this dark and light, creative and destructive forces at play here that humans have the free will to experiment with. It's literally the Force in Star Wars. Cain and Abel were also twin sons. Is this a metaphor to Adam and Eve bringing duality into the universe? Is this the beginning of good and evil? Was yin and yang created once the singularity or paradise fell? Is this a metaphor for time and the nature of change being summoned into the fabric of reality? Okay, could y'all shut the fuck up? I know this is all bullshit, but the real question is, who's fucking who? Since God did more banishing and Cain was sent to the land of Nod and apparently started a fuckathon with all these random people who had to come from Adam and Eve since they were the first man and woman, right? But there are only 3 boys named. There's Cain, the jealous psychopath, Abel, the dude who brought sheep fat to God, and God apparently loves that shit, and then there's Seth, and we all know a Seth, and they usually suck. And I think women were unnamed, so was there some castaway girls that were being passed around and Nod? And is Mary fucking kids, or is Cain just banging his sisters? God's a little perv, plain and simple. Do the math. You know God flooded the earth 4,350 years ago and took every breath of life from all creatures under the heavens because he regretted creating humans for all the violence and corruption they caused? Huh. It says, never again will I curse the ground because of humans, even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood. God damn, nice to hear that he loves us, and poor other creatures. What do they do? Couldn't God just zap all the humans away, or is that too difficult? Just drown all your children to death, I guess. No, God let one 600-year-old righteous man named Noah and his family live. He commanded Noah to put one male and one female of each animal on his ark. Guess God wanted to see some more incest again from Noah's family. And if you think the earth is so young, how do you explain dinosaurs? And don't animals eat other animals? And are the insects in tiny little cages? How does this make sense to you? Well, dinosaurs actually walked with man on Earth and were probably drowned or put on the ark. They were made on day 6 with the rest of the land animals. Think about Behemoth and Leviathan. The term dinosaur was not created until 1841. There's also dragons represented throughout almost every culture around the world. It's insane to me y'all have the largest religion in the world. I bet these big-ass dinosaurs were well-behaved and didn't try eating everything on the fucking boat. Also, how are all of them fitting? The ark was 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. He also got babies of each dinosaur instead of fully grown ones. Sure, that makes tons of sense. But flood folklore is found all around the world, though. The earliest recorded flood myth is from the Sumerians, and the Sumerians probably got it from an even more ancient culture that disappeared when the Ice Age ended and the sea levels rose, which caused huge floods all around the world. And this flood story has been echoing throughout time, mixed with other cultures' interpretations. I don't like how that contradicts my beliefs, so I'm going to ignore that. But the flood symbolizes the impending doom that we will all face in this life, which is death. The story asks, will you build an ark or drown when this suffering comes? Pain and illness will come to you or a loved one sooner or later. So how are you going to stand up to these tragedies? Are you going to be a captain and build an ark? Or are you going to drown in the flood's wake? What kind of person will you be when this tragedy comes? It's about presenting order to chaos. After the great flood, God gave everything to Noah and his sons to help repopulate the earth. And God promised there will never again be another worldly flood. Okay, and then doesn't the next part of the story talk about old righteous Noah passing out naked from drinking too much wine? And his son Ham was like, hey, Shem and Japheth, come cover up Dad's little pecker. Then Noah's hungover ass eventually wakes up and curses Ham's son, Canaan. Like, poor kid, what the hell did Canaan do? Now all of Ham's descendants are slaves to Shem and Japheth's line of lineage. Okay, so to be aware of your nakedness is realizing your vulnerability. Just like Adam and Eve, they understood their mortality and fragility once the fruit was eaten. Now they were conscious of judgment and comparison. Ham realizes this about Noah. Ham carelessly disrespected his father at a moment when he was vulnerable. Untamed criticism can weaken a man and even a society. Too much criticism can blind you from what created you to this point. Shem and Japheth handled the situation with respect and didn't think to look down on Noah because he is the foundation of their existence. Or more simply, there's speculation that Ham slept with Noah's wife and had Canaan. Oh, well, yeah, that'll do it. Wait, did Ham sleep with his mom? Anyways, Noah's wife was a daughter from Cain's bloodline too. Ham looks at his maker Noah like God for what he is. Ham, the man, sees he is like his father. This is like man comparing himself to God. If you judge, you will be judged. Making assumptions can cripple you. Okay, interesting take. So all the people on Earth supposedly come from these 3 sons' descendants. And then humanity eventually gets together in Babylon with one language and builds a utopian city that tries to reach heaven with the Tower of Babel. God wasn't a big fan of this tower, so he destroyed it. Did he not like humanity uniting and working together for a common cause? And then he created different languages to confuse everyone and create unnecessary conflicts? Humanity was mimicking God by having no limits to their imaginations and basically creating whatever they wanted. And he then scattered everyone around the earth. Wow, what a solid dude. And what if the groups described in the Bible are just the leftover humans after the Great Flood from when the ice caps melted after the Ice Age? And what if pyramids and ziggurats were just dumb attempts to reach the heavens? Like they said, that's a big enough base, and they just kept stacking blocks thinking they were going to reach the stars. And this is one bullshit story that survived. And aren't we slowly getting more and more divine? What will become of us with AI, space exploration, and gene therapy? Why does man have this never ending hunger for glory and control over all creation? Is this God's essence breathing through us? And why can't earth be heaven? I mean, the fact we and this reality exists at all is a miracle. And what if we're actually supposed to be loving this moment right now, but so many people are too obsessed with death and an afterlife? There's only one heaven. Heaven on earth cannot exist. You can only let heaven in your heart. I don't know about that, but the concept of heaven in your heart is interesting. What if most religions point to this? Think of the Tao and Taoism. You're submitting to this energy's will, which is submitting to God in the Abrahamic religions. And what if every form of life is an expression of this universe trying to experience itself through different realities? And humans are the highest order of consciousness that we know of, which God emanates through to create and be. I mean, we were made in God's image, but humans shouldn't worship or submit to fragments of reality like ideologies. Only God should be worshipped because it encompasses the whole. Maybe that's where the word holy comes from. Regardless of how we're supposed to interact with this existence, don't all great cultures fall anyways? Empires fall, corporations fall. It's like the ancient story of Icarus flying too high and the sun melting him. Look at political leaders, celebrities, or even influencers being worshipped as gods. It's a programming in the human psyche to look up to this alpha chimp. So many people are desperate for an identity to be recognized for their copy of other original expressions. This model always ends up crumbling at mass levels. Totalitarianism tries to convince us into single one-sided ideologies to create us versus them mentalities, like communism, Nazism, fascism, and even today with woke culture versus QAnon conspirators. Individualism and nuance should be honored rather than shaming the opposite. Sort of kind of what we're doing here in this conversation. So the bigger something gets, the more it splits into fragments. Is God just this universal law in nature that doesn't allow a monocultural or monobiological existence in the framework? Nature needs variability to evolve into new beings. God wants this law or mechanism to exist so it can explore and create different realities. Is this why original personalities and creations are praised? What if humanity creates this singularity, godlike existence, like an AI type of being that connects all our consciousness into this hive mind that creates all over the universe? Will this superior being that's not God ultimately destroy itself if it challenges nature? We can imagine our potential because this creator dwells in all of us. Okay. That was a lot, but man was trying to level with God by building the Tower of Babel. God went down as Christ to humble man and show them it's about loving and guiding those in need. The more genuine you are about helping and showing kindness to those in need is how closer you are to embodying Christ or the pinnacle of man. You're thinking way too hard about this. I think we both lack humility, and that's really the overall message here. Or the Tower of Babel is just a goofy attempt to explain all the different languages and cultures in the world. And yeah, you're probably right. I'm just thinking too deep about something that's just obviously dumb. But I mean, babble does mean confusion of voices, like when someone says they're babbling off nonsense, similar to this fake conversation I'm having with myself right now. I can't relate.